to the return of Black Pack Success Secrets. It's been a few months that we've been away, but I think that very important for us to return. When I was reflecting about why we started Black Pack in the wake of the horrendous murder of George Floyd, and the need for us as Black communities to come together. If we ever thought that those times would fade away and would pass, when we look at the treatment of the Black refugees trying to escape Ukraine, and how they were treated as second, third class non-humans, it makes us see that to fight for our own dignity and self-respect, to not rely on others to do that for us. And when I think about the young girl that was unnamed, that was brutalized by the police and by her school in this country, and you're thinking that in the 21st century, things that were almost happening during the time of enslavement are happening in our country today. Then more than ever, we need Black Pack. We need our voices to be heard, our stories to be told, and that and it's not mutually exclusive, that our struggles for justice and our capacity and ability to uplift ourselves and uplift our communities, they go hand in hand. Sometimes people want to separate struggles for justice with celebrating who we are, but actually the two go hand in hand. And that's what Black Pack is trying to achieve. That we as people of faith that set it up wanted to give something back into our communities, and Black Pack was the result of that endeavor. So we're delighted to have you all here this evening for I think what promises to be a very beautiful and exciting evening. Just one somber note before again we begin, before I hand over to Marge. So many of you on the platform would know of Professor Kehinde Andrews, a powerful Black brother professor, proud of one of the first Black studies, well, the first undergraduate Black studies degrees in the UK, and a fearsome advocate for our communities. And unfortunately, we learned that this week his wife passed away from breast cancer, leaving him and their family bereft. But he has launched a Race for Life in his wife's honor, so people can donate to Nicole Andrews. You can see there it was raised a good amount of money, but people can look that up. I think either if you look at Twitter for Kehinde Andrews or Google, hopefully you'll come across the Race for Life Nicole's page, and one can give a donation and write a note of condolence to him and to the family. So we just want to a brother of ours that is in pain at the moment. We just wanted to acknowledge that this evening. So as I say, Black Pack Success Secrets. We spend 1 month interviewing a key figure in our community, and we spend the next month having a critical conversation on issues that we feel are important to us. We took a mini break, but now we're back as we feel that these issues are crucial and important to us all. So without further ado, I know you didn't come to hear me talk this evening. I'll hand over to my fellow co-host, Jak Beula, to introduce us to what will take place this evening.
Thanks, William. Thank you so much. And again, I want to say welcome to everyone. It is absolutely fantastic to be back. It's good to be back. My name is Jak Beula, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to our first Black Pack interview of 2022. Now, Black Pack is a collaboration between two organizations. That's the Transatlantic Roundtable on Religion and Race and Quick Crack Media. And at the end, I'll tell you a little bit more about the Transatlantic Roundtable on Religion and Race, because we're hosting an event on their behalf next time round. Now, the Black Pack interview is where we get a chance to find out a bit more about the giants on whose shoulders we stand. And we do this by interviewing guests who are known for particular achievements. And we ask them to delve into their Black Pack and to share items of learning, guidance, wisdom, any of those things from their personal experience that will help to guide us on our way, because it has helped to guide them. Our guest this evening, and I think it's evening now, our guest this evening is Jak Beula. Now, Jak is a cultural activist. He's an entrepreneur, an award-winning board game designer, and probably best known for his wonderful works as founder of Nubian Jak Community Trust, the only commemorative plaque and sculpture scheme focused on memorializing the historic contribution of Black and minority ethnic people in Britain and beyond. Now, Jak is the fire, the inspiration behind over 70 commemorative plaques in the UK honoring Black people. Hence the reason he's sometimes referred to as Black people's Blue Plaque Man. He's also a publisher, because in 1998, Jak actually self-published the first edition of his Nubian Jak Book of World Facts, and that was subtitled The Ultimate Reference Guide to Global Black Achievement. I believe that might have been republished, but he can tell us that in a while. He's also organized and designed Britain's first African and Caribbean War Memorial, which can be found in Windrush Square, Brixton, London. He's designed a statue to commemorate the contribution of Windrush and Commonwealth midwives and nurses to the NHS, which now stands outside the Whittington Hospital in Holloway, London. And this was unveiled last year alongside the book he compiled entitled Nurse in a Nation, which brings together some of the stories of the contribution of the African diaspora to medical practice and the provision of healthcare in the UK. One-time model and singer, and at one time sporting some impressive locks, but no longer. I could say an awful lot about Jak, but I will stop there. But I want to say a huge welcome to Jak Beula. Jak, thank you for joining us on Black Pack and being willing to share some insight from your fascinating life. Welcome, my brother.
Thank you so much, my sister. What a beautiful, beautiful introduction there. Actually, I usually have a steam. I usually have a sauna before I do these interviews. I'm terribly self-conscious that I'm not quite looking like I could have done with a bit of CGI and a steam. But it's a pleasure to be here. So thank you very much.
I'm really very pleased that you've turned up in spite of not having a steam and a sauna. That's obviously the model side of your life that is just taking over again. Okay, I'm glad to hear that that one is still alive and well. Now, as we say, life is a journey, and we navigate our journeys with the tools and the things we carry in our Black Pack.
Indeed.
Today, Jak, we're going to ask you to share 4 items that have helped you to find success in your personal journey.
Thank you.
Before I ask you to share your first item, I'd like just for you to give us, are you able to give us a very quick tour of how you moved from being a social worker in Islington to being our very own unique memorializer? I've been practicing that word. You just memorialize so many things. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Okay, in all honesty, it wasn't something that I had planned. So first of all, it's a team effort. I have a wonderful team, and the greatest author of them all, the greatest team player of them all is the author of all of this, which is the Holy Creator, Jah, Most High. So I stumbled in it via doing social work, and working with inner city children who, I mean, I've repeated this quite a few times, who I thought had very negative self-imagery, and they didn't have a lot of role models, basically. So we designed a program to teach these young kids, inner city kids, about famous Black people who lived in Britain. And at the time it was Britain and Europe. And I wanted to reclaim the Union Jack. And so I called it the Nubian Jack. The word Jack means flag or upliftment. And of course, Nubian speaks for itself. So I did a board game and it took off. And here I am. Bizarre.
That's fantastic. That's wonderful. Now, I know, let me say, as I said, I've asked you to go from social work to this board, to where you are now with the plaques. Sure. But just give me a little bit more, give us a little bit more about the Nubian Jack board game, because that really took off, didn't it?
It certainly did. Here's one I preferred earlier. This is the 3rd edition, and this is the New Millennium edition. This is probably the best known of all the 6 editions that I've done. And this sold quite a few copies because we also sold it in the United States as well. What basically happened is, I tell you what, I'll actually give you a little brief demonstration, if I may. By talking about reclaiming the Union Jack, I designed the board game with the Union design. But instead of red, white, and blue, I made it red, yellow, and green. So you can see the cross of St. George there in red, and the cross of St. Andrew, or was it Patrick? I can't remember now. Anyway, Ala Dem Day Night, and I made it red, yellow, and blue, red, yellow, and green to reclaim the Nubian iconic colors, of course. And that's it, pretty much. There's 8 topics, and you have to basically learn about your history via 8 topics: entertainment, politics and law, history, science and engineering, and the like. And it was a great way of packaging the proof in a box and making it very friendly, Marge, very user-friendly, very dynamic and interactive.
And before I ask for your first item, and I hasten to tell all listeners that when it first came out, it rocketed the sales, didn't it? It did.
We outsold Trivial Pursuit and Monopoly, and that then, of course, got the press on board. And as I said, this journey began. I hadn't planned all of this, Marge. I had a personality that could probably deal with what was coming and what is to come, but I hadn't catered for the potential of waking up a lot of people. I mean, really, that the spiritual side of it is a wonderful. Which is why we do it. This is why I really do it. It's about reawakening people. Okay.
And lastly, before I start interviewing in terms of asking about your items, how many plaques, I should say, how many have you actually now erected, put up, set about?
Yesterday, we unveiled our 70th. Yesterday, we did a plaque to Sarah Parker Redmond in Russell Square. So that was our 70th plaque. Nice little joke about that. I thought we'd reach 70 plaques 3 plaques ago, and I realized, oh my God, that was only our 67th. So every time I've done a plaque, people have been saying it's your 71st. I said, no, it's so we finally got our 70th yesterday, and it was a brilliant turnout, I must say.
Okay, well done. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to ask you a little bit more about that in a while, but I am going to ask you now, as we said, the whole premise is that people like yourselves who have done an awful lot and who are doing so much to help us to remember our history and to just allow us to feel that energy and that knowledge about things that our past generation and even those who are current are doing. I'm asking you now for the first item in your black pack. What is it that you're going to share with us that has inspired you to do the things that you're doing now?
Okay, so I'm going to take out a little blue strip, and on the blue strip is some words, and the words simply says, if a thing's worth doing, it's worth doing well. I'm going to tell you why it's a blue strip, because it was an adage, a mantra given to me by my primary school teacher. Her name was Miss MacDonald, and she was a widow. And she dressed in blue. Traditionally people dressed in black. She dressed in blue all the time. And I must have been a bit of a terror, because there's 2 things I remember her always saying to me, which is don't care, didn't care, didn't care, don't care. Don't care was put in a pot until he was done. I'll come back to that. And the other one is, if a thing's worth doing, it's worth doing well. And I never forgot that. back to the first one, I must have always been saying to her, I don't care, I don't care. I don't know why she kept saying that to me, but as a youth, I clearly was, you know, a bit of a handful. And, you know, she was a little short little thing, lovely lady, about 4'8". And you know, I was an inner city black youth, and I didn't care. I didn't care. But she taught me what would happen if I didn't care. But more importantly, if I was to do something, to do it properly. And I've used that in everything I've done, from board games to plaques to apps to music. Everything I've done, I've always wanted it to be very good.
So Miss McDonald, have you seen her at all since school?
So,
you know,
in the primary school, when I was at primary school, she was in her 60s, 70s.
Okay.
Chances are
I understand.
Yeah, yeah. But I hope to bump into her again. Yeah, on the other side.
Yeah. Now, while we're here, just you're saying that someone in primary school, but you're West London, aren't you? You're still living in that side of town and so on.
Correct.
And you know, I also remember that when you talked about part of your childhood in terms of other aspects of your childhood and being brought up by your grandmother, like so many, I think, in terms of West Indian children. Anything, you know, tell us a little bit about the impact that she's had on your life.
Okay, so my grandmother was a religious evangelist. She started her own ministry, her own church, and I was the keyboard player in the church. That's where my religious and musical education started from. She was a wonderful person. She gave me my moral compass in life. She taught me to read. I mean, I learned to read at 3. I learned to read at the age of 3. Can you believe? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Started reading the Bible, of course. And there's a tape, actually, there's a documentary being made on the work of Nubi and Jak, and there's this cassette, you know, the old cassettes, you know, the sort of brown things, which
sadly I remember them well. Yes.
There's a child speaking on there. My grandmother gave me that cassette before she left, and there's a kid speaking on there, and it's me, and it's got a girl's voice, and I'm about 4 years old, and my diction is incredible. It's like, and I'm like, is that me? And it's amazing. I can't wait for people to hear that. It's uncanny. My point is, she doted on me. Her other children were in Jamaica. So my mother, who is her oldest child, my mother had me at 19. So her youngest child, my grandmother's youngest child, was about 8 or 9 when I was born. It was about 9 or 10 actually. So I became like the 8th child. That's the point I'm trying to say. So my mother went off and lived somewhere else, and my grandmother brought me up as an 8th child, and she created the person that became Nubi and Jak.
Okay. So if you link that, I'm hearing a linking of that, and the whole thing about Miss McDonald giving you that saying, if a thing's worth doing, it's worth doing well.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's made a good impression. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. It's interesting because when you started saying how you learned to read, it brought it all back, because that's exactly the same thing with my grandmother teaching me how to read.
Yes. So absolutely, really.
There's something about those days. Now I want to, you know, continue in terms of what's the other item? What else are you going to share with us that you have pulled out of your pack this evening that will guide us on the journey?
Okay, so do you want me to show you all your?
No, I just want your second item, please.
My second item is going to be a song. It's going to be a song.
Yeah.
We could do the Mahalia Jackson. It's Oh Happy Day, a song called Oh Happy Day. And when I was a kid, my grandmother used to rock Jim Reeves, man. You know, a stranger's just a friend you do not know, and all of that stuff. And then straight from across the waters, the Americans came with like, okay, you want to hear some gospel? Let me give you some gospel. And Oh Happy Day was like, you know, that was just pop. That was hip hop in the 60s in gospel, pop and reggae in gospel. Bad tune. So that would be my second backpack item.
How did that influence you in terms of, because I know, you know, we haven't even mentioned as yet something about your musical history and so on. How did that have an impact?
Great question. Not really. It's symbolic. It's symbolic that music. I grew up listening to religious music, right? And I grew up, as I said, Jim Reeves and Elvis Presley and Frank Sinatra, all the kind of white icons who sang about Jesus. That was in our home. Of course, with the next picture of Jesus, Christ is the head of this house, the unseen guest, and all the rest. I mean, I don't want to make too light of that, because I know there's a lot of Christians in the house. who would, how dare I question their image of the Son of God. I'm not here to do that, folks. But I'm just giving you, I'm paying homage to my background. And in my background, Blondie and Blue Eyed run things. He ran things. He was running the things proper. And so the Africanization of my religion, I'm paying homage by that song, because that song was symbolic of our, because I went to Pentecostal church. Let me just quickly explain that. I went to Pentecostal church, and although I was listening to Jim Reeves, when we played music in the church, they had more soul, more life. Yeah. So Oh Happy Day is a deference to my religious upbringing, my influence on music, or via music. And that's pretty much it, really.
Okay, let's hear a little snippet from the Edwin Hawkins Singers, I believe.
Right.
Come on, everybody. Oh, happy day.
Come on now.
Oh, happy day. When Jesus walked.
Come on.
Oh, when he walked. When Jesus walked. He washed my sins away.
Oh, happy
Lord.
Ah! Come on, baby. Yeah, man.
Wow, that took
Big
me
things.
back.
Big things, big things.
Oh,
Not
that
sure
was
about the hairstyle, very Ashford and Simpson-y, but there you go.
well, I was going to comment on the hairstyle and saying at the time, was that a time when you were, flicking your locks, or had you not got there?
Actually, no, locks. Are you kidding me? I would have gone to hell growing locks, man. My grandmother was like, I'm no long here and I this whole year. So it was one of those things, No, locks came as a visual rebellion to my upbringing, frankly. And it was my reclamation of Black Christianity. It was like, okay, if we're going to go the Christian route, then Selassie is Jesus come back. And I don't want to get too heavy into that as well, but it's a belief that has evolved and has become a little bit more sophisticated in my mind, but that's where all my sympathies lie, with Rastafari.
Okay, right.
100%.
Now, while I say that also because in one of the flashback from hearing the Edwin Hawkins Singers, and I remember that also, the difference it made in terms of hearing something religious that was sung to a beat in that particular way. It made a huge impact, and it also made it something that so many people listened to. But I also used that when I saw that as thinking about part of your journey in terms of your journey through music, because we know you very much now, as I said, about where you are remembering and commemorating many Black lives with the plaques that's put up, but you did spend some time in actual on the stage.
I worked with Jazzy B, George Michael, Seal, Kiss and the Pink, engineered for musical youth. I had an eclectic musical career, if you can call it that. Experience is what I'd say. 10 years. I was doing music for 10 years. Most of the music that I did, Marge, was rock influence. It was reggae and rock. So I didn't do reggae as we know it. And I certainly didn't do rock as we come to understand it. I merged the two because I'm always, I like to innovate. That's just the gene that I have inside me. I was doing, it was neither fish nor fowl, as Terence Trent D'Arby would say. So the rock audience kind of liked it. I was the band was a Rastafari. We all had dread. It was actually, there was 3 dreads, 3 people with locks, and 2 white guys. Had a wicked image, bad image. The band was called Stigma, and we were rocking, but we were different. I really like that. One day I'm going to make a movie about that. Was amazing. That experience.
I'm going to, in a minute, ask you for your third item. But before that, I'd like to jump and use and really jump from your music days into this whole thing about the plaques, because I remember that the first one was the Bob Marley.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, in my mind, there is that linkage coming from the music that you were playing. I know there wasn't a direct thing, but can you just tell us a little bit about how
Yeah.
that came about before
Thank
I
you.
ask for your third item?
Perfect. So I was managed by the same manager as Bob Marley, ironically. I was managed by a guy called Don Taylor. And I got to know him through Jazzy B. I've been on the radio a couple of times and have brought this up with Jazzy. So doing the plaque to Bob was, I was headhunted by English Heritage. So let me just explain how that came about. Because like I said, there's an author, there's a puppeteer that's running this whole show. We're just, you know, we think we're originating it, but basically we pre-programmed with lines. We're just doing our lines, you know. And what happened was I was trying to, I was doing my board game and English Heritage contacted me and said, we want you to try and make our plaques more accessible to your community. Pretty much kind of verbatim, but they included the Asian community as well. So I devised, I'm going to make all of this short, I devised a treasure trail in 2004. And it was a runaway success, but it was very difficult because at the time there was 9 plaques to Asian people of Asian heritage, and 5. I launched the 6th one to CLR James. There was CLR James. So there was 9 and 5, basically there was 15 plaques in all, and the 6th plaque, which would make it 15, was going to launch this treasure trail. And we did that. We launched it from Shakespeare Road in Brixton.
Okay.
And it was, like I said, it was a success. But Marge, I've got to just tell you, when you have 16 destinations all scattered disparately across the capital, by definition, it's not a treasure trail, because London is quite a vast city, right? And you need a car and, you know, so like I said, theoretically it was a success, but practically it was more of an idea. And from that came the Bob Marley plaque. 2 years later, after doing this, I said to English Heritage, you really should do a plaque to Bob Marley. He's got dual heritage, biracial appeal. He will appeal to Black people and white people. And English Heritage said, we can't do it, Jack. We can't turn it around in time. Why don't you do it? Why don't you form a plaque scheme? And that's how the birth of Nubian Jack was born, 2006.
Yeah. And that's the Nubian Jack Community Trust.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. We'll hear a little bit more about that in a while. If you'd like to just share the third item with us from your Black Pack, you know, that's...
So the third item would be the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Okay.
I had so many books to choose from. I could have chosen Dr. Ben, Black Man of the Nile and His Family, which is actually a far more impactful book, really. I could have chose My Life in Ethiopia's Progress by His Majesty, which I also read as a youth. But Malcolm X is the one that changed it for me. And I suggest everybody who's getting into African consciousness, African awakening, consciousness of self, that's a great book to start with, because you see a man who was uneducated culturally and, you know, was a man of the street, and he suddenly gets knowledge of self, African-centered knowledge, and a spiritual journey. He becomes so good, he probably, and I say this with a bit of restraint, he probably becomes a better teacher than his mentor.
Okay, right, yeah. So that's the one that you're putting out there, that's made an impact. Now, and again, from that, because we talked about, you know, yes, you started with the Bob Marley plaque, you know, and you started via your trust, the Nubian Jack Community Trust. And you've gone on to do a number of plaques since then. Just can you just take us through some of those? And also, I understand that you don't just do blue plaques, do you? There are others as well. Tell us a little bit more about the background, because I think that's, as I said in the introduction, so many people, if I'm talking to them about you or others are talking about you, it always comes up, you know, the man who does the blue plaques to Black people.
You know what? That's really
I know
ironic.
you don't just do blue plaques.
That's really ironic, because up until maybe a couple of years ago, everybody used to say, best known for doing the board game. It used to always be Jak Beula, best known for doing the board game, Nubian Jack. And I got a little boy wrote me recently this year and said, I'm doing a book. His name is Romeo Romeo, something you might even know him. He's quite a famous. Look at you, and he says, "I'm getting all different people, Carla, and all these different people to write a little passage in the book, empowering Black youth." So I wrote my thing. I'll keep it exclusive. But he, even in his book to this day, because I had to prove it, it goes, Jak Beula, best known for inventing the board game Nubian Jack.
Yeah.
So I still have that string.
Wonderful.
But yeah, we do different types of plaques. We do blue, we do bronze, we do black plaques. Especially, I got a plaque to Marcus Garvey on the UNIA building in Philadelphia. That's a beautiful plaque, black plaque. We do stone plaques. We have a plaque on the Foreign Office, which is Britain's highest profile plaque. We do black plaques as well, not the one that we did. Marcus Garvey's is black and gold. We do black and white plaques, which are temporary plaques. I do that with an advertising agency called Havas, and you can Google that up. And and I also have the largest blue plaque in the world. Largest plaque.
Where's that one?
That's in Labra Grove in Warnington, in the Venture Centre on Warnington Street. Largest plaque in the world.
Now, tell me, is there anything in particular that motivated, apart from what happened with English Heritage, in terms of that actually pushed you to doing this whole outpouring of memorializing of of various people? Is there anything else that caused that impact?
Not really.
It's a rather special thing that you're doing, in that it's and a lot has taken place.
This sounds like false modesty, right? Because I've always been a musician, will always be a musician. I know me. I know what I'm capable of in terms of creative wise. So when people speak about the plaques, I'm like, I obviously understand now the impact it's having, but I didn't realize it was having the impact it was having, because it was something that needed to be done. Right. So I don't trip on the plaques. I trip on my music, which is probably why I haven't made it. Well, that's not true. I've not made it because my focus is different, has been shifted. What I probably do get off on a little bit is the statues, because the statues, if the plaques are songs, the statues are albums or symphonies. The board game's a song, the statues are symphonies. And that comes right from the seed of Jah, right from the gene of Isis, the genesis of an idea in my brain. That's what the statues are. And they are like a scratch being itched. They manifest themselves in 3D in terms of statues. It's bizarre.
I'm going to come back and ask you a little bit more about those, because there are two that I'd like you to talk about in a little while, but I'm going to ask you for the last item that is coming from your black. Right.
I'm kind of cheating with the last item, because the last item is also a saying, but it's not a saying, it's a way of life. It's how I live my life, and it's what I tell my children. In fact, most people who are around me in a circle know this thing. It is, you can't fake it. Whatever you do, it has to be real. You can't fake it. Especially when it comes to Black people, don't try and fake it with us, because we will sniff you out. We've got some third and fourth eye business, spiritual business. We'll go ahead and dream and say, why? That black name in a shook, you understand? You can't fake it. Oh, I'm not sure about that board game. Yeah, no, you got to be real and authentic, and you got to be real anyway. So how many times have you spoken to someone and you say, in your case, Marge, I mean, I'm sure you don't get it, but I might say to someone, this is a metaphor. So how wonderful am I? And they'll go, I think you're amazing. Scratching the nose. Give it away. Then I lie, then I tell. All right, so you can't fake it. Yeah, and you don't know what you're giving off when you're faking it. So just be real, just be yourself, just be real. And you can't go wrong. Cannot go wrong when you're real.
Yeah. And when you tell your children and these other people that one, how do they take that one? Because it's one of those things.
I'm going to show you what my children, how they responded to that. I'm going to show you.
It looks as if he's left the room.
So my children gave me this last. And I hope it comes not back to front. Is this back to front? Are you seeing
No, we can read it. We can read it. It's straight
this
up.
This is a blue plaque that my children gave me. And it says, Jak Beula, entrepreneur, author, inventor, singer, musician, egomaniac, and great father. So that's what they think.
That's wonderful. It's at least it's
No,
within.
they're not, you know, they're not inheriting the house. They're
Mhm.
not getting anything to do with Nubian Jack and the will.
Mhm.
So, men of business, them can say what them answer.
Okay, let's now talk about two of those statues, which really
Yeah.
has made a difference, because you've got the statues in Windrush Square, in Brixton, and then you've recently, I think, as I said, not think, I know it was last year, the unveiling of the one for the NHS. Tell us a little bit about the impact that has had, both of those, because they're quite different. One's to war heroes, the others to the NHS. Tell us a little bit about the feedback you've had on the impact that has had.
Okay, so the first one is the important one. They're both important, but it's the first statue I've ever done. And the whole journey on that, again, that's why I keep saying you can't fake it, sis, because you go on a journey, you get tested, and if you ain't the real thing, you'll fall by the wayside. So I ain't even going to begin to tell you how difficult it was to get it on the square with my team, because again, God sends people to help you. It's very important. You can't do it, you can never do it on your own, but you can be the symbol, the face, the personality that embodies it. The one on Windrush Square was to people who served in World War I and II, who had not been recognized, who had not been commemorated, not been celebrated, had not been remembered. And I felt, or we felt, it was high time that 2 million African people who've gone and fight for somebody else, or gone and fight for the mother country, and that they can't be commemorated in the 100th anniversary of the ending of World War I. Nah, that's not right, is it? So that's why we did it. We did it as a labor of love, and it healed. It was like a lot of souls were in purgatory, were in the Elysian fields. A lot of people, sis, who died for this country. Do you understand? Even David Lammy and certain people have done it. These people have died and they're just there. They haven't even been given graves. It's insane. And then when you start going into the deep history of African involvement in conflict, you discover that the British West Indies Regiment, fantastic, we've got 2 plaques of them. They were formed to fight against black people. They formed the British West Indies Regiment, and their first activity they saw was going over to Africa and fighting the Africans. The whole thing's flipped back to front, warped anyway. I felt it was undignified and disrespectful that we should be laying our wreaths against area stones in Brixton, against the wall, the Bovril wall in Brixton. Nah, not on my watch, not on the watch of my team. And so we put that right, and we put that war memorial there. And that war memorial is very mystical, sis. It's very mystical. Lambeth have tried, I don't want to even get into this some politics stuff. They don't want us to celebrate Remembrance Sunday on the square. So if I hadn't done what I had done, I would have picked up that memorial and bring it to Peckham. Believe me, I would take it, and I would, although it's now the highest symbol, it's the highest visual symbol of diversity in this country, by the way. Everybody's going there and doing videos, that's really beautiful. But when it was placed there, there was a curse put there. There was incantation. Professor Gus John will tell you, Kisheni will tell you, nobody can move that thing there, not even me. If you want to come up with bumps and bruises, you understand, like Howard Carter and their man there, go and go fast with it. So Allah's is there until somebody's going to move it in the next 500 years, and let's watch what happens to them.
It is a beautiful, it's a wonderful thing to have done, a wonderful memorial. Now take us on that second one very quickly, the one beside Vincent Hospital.
Very quickly, the second one, we've honored the soldiers. The second one, now we honor the nurses and the midwives, the black women's turn. And we made it 7 foot high, 7 foot wide, made it out 16 pieces, 1 and 6 is 7. And every one of those pieces are carved to a number divisible by 7. So the statue is a black woman feeding the baby NHS, only 16 pieces. And it was, the number 7 is to reference the 7 decades that the NHS was created. I wanted to show the world, 1, I'm genius. 2, I'm wonderful. 3, I'm an egomaniac. And 4, I'm not as good looking as I used to be. There you go.
I'm not quite sure which one I'll agree with and which one I won't. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And
The last one.
but it's such a wonderful symbol. And I recall at the time that there was a book that was compiled. I think Nursing a Nation.
Wonderful, wonderful.
If we have a chance, we'll put that in the chat because that's available and it's a
I
compilation.
also think we should big up Mervyn, your other half, by the way, who designed the cover for us, iconic cover. So it was like a great teamwork. Miranda Pine and Dr. Margaret Busby helped to edit it. Incredible support from them and lots of other people, you know. But those three deserve mention: Mervyn, Margaret, and Miranda. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Jack, I know that we can ask a lot more, and we will in a while, you know, when we come off and we have the afterglow. But for now, you know, such a lot. There is so much I want to ask you about the, you know, going back about the games, going back about the struggle you had to publish your books, that you had to end up going to the States and getting that done. But that's probably for another time. But for now, I'm going to ask you from the 4 items, the 4 thoughts that you have shared with us. I'm going to ask you to choose one. Choose one that you're going to say, look, I'm going to use this as my main baton to pass on to whether it's the next generation, just anybody who's on this platform here listening, as one of the things that really moved me, and I'm going to offer that on to inspire you.
It's going to be Miss McDonald's quote: "If a thing's worth doing, it's worth doing well." Africa's worth doing and and salvaging and creating and building. So the best do it well. That you can't top that. If a thing's worth doing, it's worth doing well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's wonderful to have the conversation. Thank you so much for saying yes. It's great. Don't go anywhere because I'm just going to ask now. We're opening it up for questions. I don't know if anybody's put any questions in the chat either. Jack said so much that nobody wants to ask anything. I can't see it so well. So if there's any chat questions, or if you haven't, please put it in the chat now, or if there's another way of indicating, we'll let you in quickly to any questions you have for Jack. I believe, Mervyn, you had a story to share, did you not? If not a question? You'd have to unmute yourself. I'll allow you to unmute yourself, and you're going to make a comment you wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, it's interesting that Jack is saying he doesn't quite understand the impact that the plaques make. So in his own mind, it's not his greatest claim to fame. But I think one thing that I have experienced in seeing a few of these plaques put up is something quite remarkable. So one is, a lot of us are fighting for the acknowledgement of Black history. And Black history can end up being something academic or theoretical.
Yeah.
The blue plaques make it practical. It's a practical statement of Black history that says we were here and we made a difference, we made an impact. So it does that, but something that I really recognize as being really powerful is that whenever there's a launch of a blue plaque, you get an ad hoc community coming together.
Yeah.
And what it does, it brings people, sometimes it's old friends who haven't seen each other for years.
Yeah.
And it brings the whole community together, not just the Black community, but the white people who are also honoring that person. Yeah,
that's true.
And you have a coming together. It's almost like a party spirit, which is really unique. And in a kind of era where we've been used to not seeing each other, it's hard to put into words, but it creates something quite rich and intangible, which reminds us of who we are and why we're here and the connections that we have. And so just the idea of giving an opportunity of people and a reason for people coming together. You know, one of the things you realize as you get older, sometimes the only times we come together properly is at funerals.
Yeah.
But blue plaques is a wonderful opportunity for us to come together, and it's not a funeral, it's a celebration.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Thank you. And the other thing is, what you're doing is that you're honoring Black people who have made a difference. And if you didn't do that, some of these people's lives would just disappear. So, you know, us inviting you on this forum this evening is our way of honoring you. This is a virtual blue plaque for Jak.
I really appreciate that, Mervyn. And I just want to quickly respond to that. When you get a mission, or when you get a duty to do, or when you get something you need to do, if you don't do it, this universe, especially in this time, the way the world works, someone else will get it. The Holy Creator can't wait on you, Jak. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about me bringing out a plaque and, you know, thinking, oh my God. It's about, as you rightly say, sharing our common cultural heritage, not just as African people, but as people who've lived in this country, who are not African, of African heritage, to think, oh my God, like yesterday's plaque. It was, frankly, it was the African heritage people were in the minority. The vibes was great. The sun was killing it. Paul Gilroy it was beautiful. Dr. Margaret, excellent vibe. And I must admit, Mervyn, I do share that. I do feel that. I realize there's something quite clean about doing these plaques. It is bigger than me, man. We're doing something for them. But my job isn't to, as I say, to think about what I'm doing. That's not the, you know, I'd rather be on a beach. Everybody knows my joke, but little do they know I'm not joking. I'd rather be on a beach with a couple of pina coladas, scantily clad sisters, talking about our next statue. All of us are scantily clad.
Okay. Okay, right. I'm going to swiftly moving on. Thank you very much.
Right.
I'm going to a couple of questions. One of the questions is that how do you decide? How do you, and I know it's not you, so explain to us how is this decision made?
Yeah, perfect, great. So it's a team effort. I saw that, I forgot the gentleman's name who wrote that question. It's a team effort, Marge. And what we do is we have a board of trustees and we have various nominations and we discuss it as a team. And whoever's warrants the being commemorated, they get the gig.
Right, yeah. So therefore someone could just send in a name and give you a reason as to why, and then your team will have a look at that. Okay.
That's right. But what they have to do, they have to send in a name with the addresses, because there's no point then sending a name and then we have to go and research the addresses. They have to send a name, Marge, give us the addresses and the period that the person they nominated lived at, the period they lived at the address or addresses.
Yeah. Okay. The other one is that what's the next one on the list?
Next one is Baker Williams, Baron Baker, and Leopold Williams. Baron Baker was the gentleman who who went to Windrush, the ship, and got some of the people to come and settle in West London and South London. So Baron's a bad boy. He's a proper rude boy. He was in the RAF. He was in the military. He was in the police in the RAF. And we were attacked in 1958 at 9 Colville Square, the beginning of the Notting Hill riots. And it took this man, this Jamaican brother who was in the army, to organize Molotov cocktails. And he sent the women, him and Leopold sent the women across the road at number 6. And the whole thing kicked off. And we gave Mosley's black shirts, you know, what's his name? Bernie Grant said we gave them a bloody good hiding. We gave them more than that. Black shirts, teddy boys, all down there, and I'm honoring them, man, there on the 9th. I'm gonna love that one.
And tell us again the location.
So that's 9 Colville Square. My team, what's her name? Coral will send it out. She's not online at the moment. She's doing an event. But yeah, it's 9 Colville. Is it? I forgot. Colville.
Never mind. We can put that up. And by the way, we can check that out on the
Nubian Jak website.
The Nubian website. Yeah. Okay. Now, one other question. It says it's our brother here is saying, I'd like to hear about the first time you came to the US. What was it like? I'm struck by your uniqueness and wonder, how did you relate to the first Black Americans you met?
Perfect. First, I want to big up Khadija George. I just saw a lovely post from her. I didn't quite get it. She types too fast, but big up her wonderful queen. I don't even know who's on it, but big up everybody who's moving and shaking. And she's one of those who are hoping to shift the narrative. Okay, so I first went to America. I was born on the 4th of July, guys, just to why my children call me egomaniac, because all the ducks are there. But anyway, I was born on the 4th of July. The first time I went to America was I think it was 1977. No, it was even younger than that. I was younger. I tell you why I was younger, because this is very important. I went to America maybe 8 or 9 or 10. I can't remember now, right? But Marge, I was walking on a wall. Yeah, just walking on a wall, you know, as you do. And some American kid came down and said, "Hey man, get down off the wall." I'm like, "I'm getting down off the wall." And I just think, why can't I walk on the wall?
See the bad boy black man from England.
Yeah, that was my first interaction with I've been to America 7 times. I also went there with dreadlocks. You know, I went there in the 80s with dreadlocks. And them time there, natty dread wasn't a phenomenon, So again, I was getting, you know, unusual look. I tell you, America's an untapped resources. Someone needs to teach them about Selassie idea. I'm not even joking, Marge. You need to teach them about His Majesty. You know, Marcus Garvey isn't taught in schools. I'm being serious now. Marcus Garvey isn't taught in schools. These folks, you know, one time I was listening to, about 2 years ago, Stormzy dropped a track. Right? I listened to Stormzy's track, and then I listened to an African-American rap track, and it actually sicked me. When I heard what they were saying to the word what Stormzy was saying, in other words, anyway, you know, they've gone through the whole dehumanizing process, but they have been the greatest influence on me, African Americans. So there's a dichotomy going on there. They're historians, Dr. Ben, John Hendrik Clark, Ivan Van Sertima, South American brother. Honestly, the people in this group are already familiar with those names. You understand? Go and educate your children about these people.
Well, Jak, thank you very much indeed. Don't go anywhere, because we haven't finished yet. We're coming to the point where we're actually finished in terms of the recordings. But what we're going to have now is, I'd just like to thank you very much, because it's been fantastic. And from what you have said, I know that you can say an awful lot more. And I know there's so many other things that you have done that I'd like to talk about. Yes, the egomaniac. Yes, also also the fact that he was the face of Interflora for about 4 or 5 years, and so on. You know, in his way back modeling days and all of those things. But you know, really, it's just to say thank you so much. Thank you for what you have done for our community. Thank you for being here, and thank you for actually taking the time to just spend chatting and helping us to know more about the man behind the face we see and the things we see. And as Mervyn put on a few minutes ago, it's so important that you remember others, and we just want to remember you. And just thank you, because so often you find people who are doing that and putting things out there are not themselves being remembered until way back, and maybe when you're gone and you're not here. So while you're here watching us, we want to say thank you. So stay with us for a moment, folks. I'd like to now just move on for a bit to tell you what's going to happen next month, because this is the first of our event for 2022. We have an event coming on next month. I'd like to tell you a little bit about that. Once we have done that, I will then like to play us out, because what I'd like to share with you is a piece of music, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. It's a special treat. But Wayne, if you wouldn't mind just sharing this, no, Mervyn, if you wouldn't mind sharing the screen, I'd like to just talk a little bit about our next event that's taking place on the 30th of April. And while you're doing that, I think Khadijah's put in the chat about, is there a mailing list we can be informed about the events? Well, there are 2 forms of a mailing list on the Quick Crack website if you'll subscribe, and that will be anything to do with the Black Pack events, and also on the Nubian Jak website, anything to do with what's going on and where the next plaque is going to be put up and times. Is that correct, Jak? I'm assuming that's correct.
It is. I've just seen there's quite a few people on the platform. I have to big up my team, man.
Yes, a lot of your people are there, but you got to hold for a minute. Let me just talk about our next event. Folks, our next event is on the 30th of April, 7:30. And this time, at the front end, I said that Black Pack is really a joint effort between 2 organizations, Quick Crack and the Transatlantic Roundtable on Religion and Race and Religion. And together we came together to form Black Pack. Well, when we meet next month, we normally have a critical conversation where we bring in specialists to talk on a particular subject. We are going to to host an event for the Transatlantic Roundtable on Race and Religion. And that particular event will be the launch of a book by the Roundtable, TRRR for short. That's going to be the event. And the book is called Racialized Health, COVID-19 and Religious Response. It sounds a really big mouthful of a title, but what it is all about, it's about the impact of COVID-19 on Black people across the African diaspora. We've come to a point where we've moved past many of the lockdowns, but it's looking back time and looking back at certain things, how things were done, what's been the impact on various groups of people and so on. It's going to be a really good event. We're going to have, the list there talks about the speakers, but primarily we'll have one of the editors of the book, because it's a whole series of essays that's been contributed by various people. And we'll have two of the contributors, and they'll be interviewed, they'll be given short presentations, and there'll be a chance for questions to be asked. So I hope that you're going to come to that. Certainly, if you haven't, go to the Quick Crack website and subscribe, and we'll send the information out to you. Everyone on this platform who've come via Eventbrite will send it out to you also. We hope you'll join us then. It will be a fabulous event, great speakers, and a chance to ask questions. So thank you very much. Thanks, Mervyn, for sharing that screen. So I'm just now going to ask for Wayne to close us out, because normally we have someone doing a live piece of music of some sort. But why on earth should we do that when we have the man himself? Mr. Nubian Jack, Mr. Jak Beula, all sorts of names. Sometimes I just call him Nubian Jack, even though I know his name is Jak Beula. But he did a piece of music to go with that statue for the NHS, to go with the book that he compiled last year. And I believe it's called I Have a Song. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it? And once he's finished, Wayne, just hit us so we can have some of that as we fold up this event, close the recording, but please stay on if you want to just chat for a little while. Okay. So tell us about a little bit this song.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really honored. I hope I wasn't too shallow in some of my
too late now.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you to everybody who took the time to also watch. Basically, the song came to us by a man called Eric Roberson. He is a R&B multi-nominated Grammy artist. And I have a sister who works with me called Kasheni. And she said, Jack, wouldn't it be great if we could record that song for the War Memorial? It was actually for the War Memorial. I'm going to fast forward it. 6 months later, he was in my car and I was driving to the studio with him and Kasheni in the back seat. That's what happened. That's the God's truth. We went into the studio and I hadn't sung for a long time. I kid you not. And he just brought into my energy and he goes, okay, Jack, you go and sing first. And I went, yeah, honest to God, I'm not exaggerating. I couldn't sing. And I was scared. I was like, what's coming out? And he goes, okay, let me just go in there and do my thing. And he went in there and 3 or 4 takes, he'd done his thing. And I followed his lead. After he finished, I started listening to him and retuning how to sing again. I was that arrogant. I thought I could go in and sing with a multi. It's insane, right? This is insane. But anyway, what you're going to hear is a remix, and it was done for the women. And it's called I Have a Song, the remix. It also includes the NHS choir, and it has a host of musicians, about 60 musicians that came together to do this song. Sorry to keep talking, but and I produced it. It's the most beautiful, and I'm rapping on it as well. It's insane, but it's the most beautiful thing. So enjoy.
Okay, so we'll be played out with that. And as I said, we won't go to the whole end of the track, but we'll play it with a good piece. And then I'd say, stay on, please. Jack's going to stay with us for a little bit longer. Then you can unmute your mics. And once that's done, then we can just have a chat. So, yes, Wayne.
Yeah. Big up our massive our crew. As in the end, love is all we need. It is. How does it feel to finally be free? Wonder will I ever know? Sometimes I dream of how it would be to have a life that I own. When you look at me, what do you see? Do you understand? something that I'm probably not meant to find. No matter how hard it gets, no matter when the tears fall, nothing can stop us from trying. No. When you look at me, what do you see? Do you understand my story? All I want is love, someone else to see. If you took the time, I have a song. Some might call me a villain, some may favor alien. Make me walk 1,000,000 miles to be free. Just to make a living and stop the killing and spread a little loving, cause love is all we need. In at the ends cause love conquers all. United we stand and divided we fall. A time when love is see at the time if we stand tall. Me I look to one of the answer the call. When you look at me, what do you see? Do you understand my story? All I want is love, someone else to see. If you took the time, I have a song. When you look at me, what do you see? Do you understand my story? All I want is love, someone else to see. If you took the time, I have a song.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. That was wonderful. So thank you, folks. We're going to stop the recording now. And I just want to say again, another fantastic thank you to Jack. Thank you to all of those who've joined us this evening. Do stay on so that we can have an off recording chat should you wish. And then you can also unmute and ask questions.